forward to how AI will impact the work of gemstone laboratories and gem reporting. There will be significant changes ahead, as you can well imagine. I'd first like to ask the panel individually just to introduce themselves, starting with Daniel to my left and then going down the line. Just, Daniel, tell us a little bit about yourself and also your focus on AI.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Cibjo and Vincenzo, for having me here in this nice panel. My name is Daniel Nyfeler. I'm the Managing Director of the Gübelin Gem Lab, as well as responsible for some other activities of the Gübelin Group, such as a provenance proof, which is developing and marketing traceability solutions for all type of gemstones, and the Gübelin Academy.
Hi, everyone. Great to be here, and thank you for everyone for inviting me. Always good to be on a panel here in Vicenza. My name is David Block, CEO of Sarine Technologies. We're a technology company developing different technological solutions for the diamond industry, all the way from the mines through manufacturing and all the way down to the retail, AI grading, traceability, and other solutions.
Hello, everybody. It's so nice to see you here. Thanks, Cibjo, for the great opportunity. My name is Wuyi Wang. I'm Vice President of Research and Development in GIA. I'm educated as a geologist, diamond geologist. I have been in GIA for 25 years, and I work with a pretty big research and development team, and also deeply involved with daily diamond identification services.
Good afternoon. I'm Paul de Wachter. Recently joined HRD Antwerp as the new CEO. I have come from a banking background and very excited to be here. Thank you again for the invitation. And I think today I'm going to learn a lot from the colleagues here on stage because I'm really fresh in the organization, but looking forward to it. Thanks so much.
Hello. Hi. Nice to see everybody. My name is Rebecca Foerster, and I'm the President CEO of Hearts on Fire North America. I've spent over 25 years in the diamond industry, working for 2 of the major mining companies, so I have a real passion for diamonds and have worked very closely with many of the labs represented here on stage. I'm really honored to be here. Thank you, Dr. Gaetano Calvieri, for having me as your guest here at the show. And I'm looking forward to hearing all the different perspectives from this great panel about AI and how it's going to impact our industry as we move forward.
Thank you, Rebecca. And Lisa Koenigsberg, who is joining us remotely from New York City. Hello, Lisa. Can you introduce yourself to us?
Yes, hello, everyone. So sorry to not be there this time, but delighted for the opportunity. My name is Lisa Koenigsberg, and I am the founder and president of Initiatives in Art and Culture. And we are an organization that is devoted to what you might call the study of visual culture. And that means objects that are in one way or in crafted objects and from source all the way to, or material all the way to realization. And for Force, I've spent a lot of time thinking about the relationship between individuals creating technology and reception of the object, particularly with regard to the arts and crafts movement and the jewelry industry and crafts associated therewith.
Lisa, thank you very much. Lisa, you're talking to us remotely. If you frantically want to say anything any moment, wave at me and I can see you there, and then we can bring you in at a moment's notice. So thank you very much, panelists, for joining us today. We had a wider discussion at the Cibjo Paris Congress in October about how AI will impact the jewelry industry, and clearly AI is going to have a big impact at various levels of the industry, including manufacturing and retail. We did touch upon gemstone labs and the work of labs, and we're going to go into that in much more detail today. And we did talk about jobs as well, and we will be addressing the subject of jobs right now. I'd like to start off by bringing in David, because David, you're right at the forefront of this technology. And could you just sort of paint a picture for us about how you see the work of Gem Labs changing in the future? Just, in a really broad brush way, explain to us your vision as to how the work of Gem Labs will evolve.
Okay, so as maybe some of you know, we also operate a Gem Lab for grading diamonds. And I think we can separate Gem Labs very, very roughly into two areas. One is research, understanding the more complex aspects of whether it's diamonds, gemstones, pearls, and so on and so forth. More on the research side, the more advanced processes, and that's one of the areas. And in that area, there's definitely area for AI to impact. But I think the biggest impact will come with the areas where there is very repetitive, monotonous work that is being done by graders, not necessarily gemologists. Work that's done again and again and again, this person picking up a diamond, checking what the color is 50, 60 times a day. And in that area where there's a very deterministic process, we can see that technology and AI-driven grading is already replacing the work of the grader. So I think that's the big area where there's going to be the impact in the shorter term. On the area of research and the more complex processes, there you need a lot more advanced understanding, and therefore it's not that AI cannot exist. And I think Daniel will probably talk a little bit about that as well, but there's a lot more complexity to replace people doing that kind of work.
So just to quickly follow up, what will this mean then for jobs? You're saying that diamond grading jobs will go. I mean, is this across the board, and what sort of time span are we talking about here?
So again, the repetitive processes of, let's say, color grading, the simple clarity grading, the simple processes, I think, definitely are already in the process of being replaced by technology and AI grading. If I'm not mistaken, GA already does color grading fully or mostly by AI. We do a lot of the color grading, or most of the color grading, as well as a lot of the clarity grading. And I think those kind of jobs of the graders are going to be replaced by technology. Now, again, that I always get asked this over the last decade or two. I've also been in the industry for 25 years. So as a technology company, I get asked that question repetitively about jobs. And I think when looking back, I don't have a crystal ball to look forward what will happen, but I can look back in history what has happened. And I can actually quite proudly say that if I look at our technology, it has not removed jobs. It's increased quantities of jobs. So the quantity of people working on technology today in the diamond industry has increased tenfold as compared to previously, and the number of jobs that it replaced increased them. Second, it increased the level of the people. So people working on very lower skill now work on computers and high-tech systems. So I don't see, at least looking back in history, the negative impact. Also, we need to realize that technology is always moving forward. I mean, when Thomas Edison invented the light bulb, I don't think he thought about all those candle makers that are going to be out of jobs. As long as there's value that technology brings to the table, there's a positive impact. Or if we look today at automated cars, if I'm not mistaken, in the US, there's 4 million truck drivers. I don't know how many taxi drivers. They are going to be out of a job. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Probably going to be a lot less accidents. So as long as there's value to technology that is brought to the table and those jobs will be changed to something else, I think there's overall a positive impact of technology when it's brought to the table.
So essentially it's about improving the quality of the service. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but if I could just move to Daniel. Same question for you. Oh, hang on. Lisa, just butt in. Come on. What would you like to do?
Yeah. Hi, thanks. Okay. So what I wanted to say to David is, it's a bit more complex because the dislocation is potentially vaster, complicated by, so for example, with regard to truck drivers and taxi drivers, at least in the United States, we have, fairly vigorous oversight in terms of unions. But in other areas, we don't. And one of the challenges that we have is not saying, based on history, it has sorted itself out, but being proactive with regard to the displacement that will occur. And I don't know, because I'm not that familiar with AI in terms of its capabilities, but perhaps one of the things that can do it is help us to figure out uses for these people who, in effect, are displaced, but also technology will create issues that can be addressed by humans, because many of the things that we look to it for actually create both promise and problems, such as customization, for example, individualization, personal counsel, conversation, things like that. I don't want to derail the conversation too much.
Okay, thank you for that. Let's move on to you, Daniel. Gübelin have proprietary technology. Can you just tell us about how you foresee the work of the Gübelin Gemstone Lab changing, evolving in the future? I mean, are you essentially going to become a software provider to the global trade?
Good idea. We still perceive ourselves as being a lab, testing any kind of materials. For us, the main change that you are describing already happened as well. I mean, when I started at the Gübelin lab, we had basically a room full of gemologists, so earth scientists, mineralogists, geologists doing the work. Meanwhile, the actual gemologists are a minority of the people in our lab. We have a majority of people that are busy either as analysts, so collecting data, or as a data scientist, solid-state physicists, different type of people that are very good in the task they do, where you still want to have human beings. And the actual interpretation of the data, our work, just to make it clear, you're here to learn, right? You said. So there's a big difference between diamond and color gemstones. What we do is not forcibly or not only grading. In color gemstones, it's very much a forensic approach to try to find out where does the stone come from which source, and has it been treated in one way or not, because that's typically not disclosed. Neither the industry knows about the provenance exactly, nor they know about whether it has been treated. So we're collecting data and we're trying to make sense out of that. So that has already changed a lot, the work. The software now that we are having, which we have named Gemtelligence. Now, if you ask me, are we still going to be a lab in a couple of years? Maybe not. We are just about to launch a service. We have 2 pilots running right now, where we want to offer this, say, the most difficult task of what the Color Gemstone Lab is doing is trying to make sense of the data you collect, because you need a complete reference collection, because we are comparing the data that we collect on the unknown stone with the pattern of data we collect from known stones. So we are in the very privileged position to own a reference collection of some 30,000 plus stones, which is covering all commercially relevant color gemstones mines worldwide. That's a privilege. Not everyone is having that. So we are lucky to have that. And we thought, hey, now we have this software. We have the knowledge that we could gather seeing the most important stones over so many decades. We are in business since 102 years. Why not offering that software that we're having now to the industry? Because many labs out there, we got contacted by labs from, say, Saudi Arabia, from India, from all over parts of the world, and they say, can you share the reference collection with us? No, we don't want to do that. But now we can share the knowledge condensed in this software with them. So we want to offer this software as a service to other laboratories, to our competitors. We know that there are brands out there like Cartier. They have a fully fledged laboratory, fantastic lab, fantastic people operating it, but they struggle to make sense of the data because they do not have the reference collection. They might not have the competent people making in a consistent way sense of the data, and that's what we plan now to offer. So maybe we're going to change from a lab to a software company eventually.
So Daniel, you essentially are saying then that as a gemological laboratory, you may evolve into a software provider, and that you may be looking to offer that software to other laboratories. Is that correct? And how would such an arrangement work?
We are, as I said, we're running 2 pilots right now with 2 laboratories. We basically go to these labs. We make sure that the instruments are producing meaningful data. And then they sign a contract. They can either have a monthly subscription. So they upload the data via an API to our lab. We crunch the data, we give them the result, and then they are putting it on their lab report, so not on our lab report. They can or cannot put the cooperation with us on their report, which I think so far the labs we're talking to, they want to do that, and then that's it.
So Wuyi, it looks like there are very big changes ahead. I mean, GIA, I understand, have around 2,000 diamond graders. Do you foresee a time when GIA could be using, for example, Gübelin software in their own gemstone reporting? And what are your thoughts about jobs? I mean, are those diamond grading jobs going to go?
Well, AI is a great technology, great computer technology that makes computer mimic human intelligence. We in GIA have been trying to apply AI technology to improve our service very hard. As what David mentioned, some area AI can be applied and some area is difficult. We use it, try to improve our diamond grading, color stone service, and try to automate our service as much as possible. But I do want to mention two things. In the last 20-something years, the German laboratories have been experiencing a great progress in technology. Some technologies are AI-related very recently, some are really not. GIA has been pursuing this technology and including AI to improve our services. So for example, the color grading of a diamond, GIA used to have a lot of color grades to do color grading. Now we have very few because our instrumentation, not necessarily AI related, would be able to do excellent job, much faster, much better, and much more accurate. So this is one point I want to make. And second point I want to make about AI technology, to make AI work, data quality is extremely important. The poor data would generate very inaccurate data, so they need a pretty big infrastructure to make sure data can be correctly collected and to make sure the AI model is going to work. That's not a simple task, a huge investment, and the human resources need to be involved. Yeah, GIA has totally have over 3,000 employees. A lot of people are working on diamond grading. I think we will continue to improve our technology in diamond grading service, diamond ident, color stone ident, including our many service, our jewelry service, for sure, with AI technology involved. But to answer your question, I don't see in the immediate near future, let's say 3-5 years, that development would need to a significant reduction of our employee numbers. And the technology, yes, speed up our efficiency, consistency for sure, and to some degree, I hope it can also help us to improve our accuracy. It also creates other opportunities for the jewelry industry, make some other testing lab service impossible in the past, but now possible now and in the future. So I think the keep the German labs service is still kind of a reasonably stable manpower would be able to keep.
So essentially what you're saying is that you foresee that AI will support the work of an existing human workforce in grading, and you're not predicting big changes in numbers of jobs of graders in the near to medium term.
I think it's from 10, 15 years ago, industry has been talking about a black box, like everybody's imagining a black box, diamond in, diamond out, and with everything graded automatically with report printed. It's a very good imagination, but practically it's extremely difficult. Each diamond is different, and every diamond needs to be tracked individually. And something instrument can see, some features instrument is very difficult to see, cannot entirely replace human being. I use one simple example. Graining in diamond that impact the top quantity diamond clarity, like a VVS1, VVS2, or internal uniformness. Our graders are very well trained to recognize graining with a different intensity, but for instrument at this stage to recognize accurately of the graining feature, repeatable accurately, and still in a affordable that type of resources to be put to do that, I still see some challenges. I still just use this one example. Something instrument can do, AI can do, that's still quite a lot, still need to be developed, as I share this with David.
So Paul, Rebecca, please.
So I'm just going to take a little bit of a different perspective here. You know, AI makes total sense for grading because it's data-based, but the data has to be good, to your point. And as an industry, we tend to run rather than necessarily walk. And I just worry about, you know, from the last panel, we talk about consumer trust and how we communicate and how we continue to present diamonds as a luxury product. And that's my perspective where I get a little bit nervous. So I think it's important, you know, AI, there's no guardrails on AI, there's no privacy, there's no security. I mean, we're running and there's all these things that are concerning from a consumer standpoint. So I'm not against it, that's not what I'm saying, but I just think it's really important that we do it properly and that we don't diminish the level of trust or the expected experience from the consumer. So communication is key. Therefore, I do think you're going to need people still, the human element, maybe not for some diamonds that are more commodity, but certainly for the more special diamonds where there needs to be that last eye on it to give it that credibility and, you know, value that it deserves. I think there's going to be opportunities for chief AI officers in companies because they're going to have to evaluate the type of AI programming that works for different structures. I think there are going to be AI data people, as you said, because the data is really critical so that we make the AI intelligent. So lots of things to consider if we're going to really protect our industry. And that's something that I feel very strongly about.
So thank you for that. Before I come to Paul, if I could just bounce that off David, I mean, what is your response to Rebecca's point about, say, safeguards for emerging AI?
So first of all, I agree with you totally. One of the major jobs of a gem lab is creating trust. Otherwise, why would anyone send a diamond to a gem lab? It's not that people don't know how to grade diamonds themselves, not the suppliers, they know how to do a great job, so does the retailer. The gem lab is a stamp of trust. So no doubt that needs to stay, has to stay. The AI is a tool. It's nothing more than that. It's a tool to create an even higher level of trust. Again, I would assume, and again, I think that's what Wuyi inferred to, they use AI to increase that level of trust that GA provides. We do the same. So definitely that needs to be done responsibly. The safeguards, I mean, the amount of time that I spend with our retail companies, high-end brands doing due diligence on what we do is enormous because they ask those questions and they are very good questions. They need to be asked and we need to provide answers to them. So there's definitely a high level of responsibility, just like when doing a manual grading process in a lab, there's a high level of responsibility on the process. The same goes with technology. So I don't see it any differently. The trust needs to be maintained. And through technology, the objective is to increase that level of trust and not to decrease it in any way.
And how do you bring in the safeguards, though?
So just like, you know, with any technology company, just to give you an idea in terms of scale, through our technologies, not necessarily only grading, about 100 million diamonds pass through our technologies annually. That's not something new. That's nothing to do with necessary grading or AI. Over the last 2 decades, we've built technology that sit basically along the pipeline. And we need to build these safeguards, not from today, but from 10 and 20 years ago. Why? Because that data is important to our clients. We work with all the high-end brands. We work with all the major retailers, site holders, the mines themselves. They're entrusting us with their data. And as Rebecca said, you know, the data needs to be quality data, garbage in, garbage out. So they need to entrust us with their data over the last 2 decades. So we've had to build those safeguards, those privacy policies, those privacy protection, IT. I mean, we spend a huge amount of on IT just to make sure that the data is protected, that it's secure, that it's private, and we do that kind of due diligence with our clients because, again, they ask those questions.
Very good. Paul, how do you foresee the work of HRD Antwerp evolving over the next several years in view of the infusion of AI? What's going to change?
Yeah, so first of all, it will be very naive and short-sighted to say that AI will not be important. Of course, it will be important. It will be a big driver for the advancements on a technological basis. So we are, of course, also investing in that. We're doing the research. We are working on that very hard. But I think it's very important that we keep that trust in mind, which Rebecca referred to. I think that if you look at what's happening now on social media, for example, just to give you one example of how AI can confuse people. You see movies, you don't know whether it was AI generated or was manual, it was real, but just through footage. So from that perspective, I think it's very important that the consumer is well informed, the customer throughout the entire value chain is well informed about to what level AI was used. It needs to be done in a transparent manner. And I believe as well, like what Wuyi said, is that there will be changes also with regards to how staff is being allocated to certain operations within the organization. Certain things will speed up. That means that graders might have more time to focus on more complicated stones and less on bread and butter stones. But I'm personally, in the foreseeable future, I'm quite convinced that we will be using AI as an enabler, as a co-pilot. But I think that at the end of the day, I still need that human expertise that looks at a diamond and gives an opinion. One small example, because I come from a banking background, from a financial background. If you look at how credit rating agencies work, and S&P, they also have now, before they had an army of credit analysts, and now they still have them, but a lot of it is driven by AI models. The data is poured into models. And at the end of the day, the cert that is being delivered, sorry, not a cert, but the credit rating which is being delivered, is still decided upon by a credit committee, which is humans, which is not AI. And I believe we will probably move more into that direction than into a completely AI-driven environment.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about the efficacy of the work of GEM Labs infused with AI technologies. Firstly, if I could ask Daniel, I mean, there has been criticism over the years of inconsistency among the work of GEM Labs, pertaining in some cases to determination of origin of some gemstones, and I understand also color. I mean, what are your thoughts about how AI technologies can potentially improve the efficacy of the work of GEM Labs, particularly with regard to determining, for example, the origin of a gemstone or the precise determination of color?
Well, it already does for the being consistent with what we put on the report for origin and for treatment.
But another lab may disagree with what Gübelin is saying in certain circumstances today or in the past.
Of course, but at
least... Do you
foresee
that being less likely going forward?
Well, there are industry efforts such as the LMHC, the Lab Manual Harmonization Committee, where the GIA is also part of. And so we meet, we discuss, and we try to agree on certain standards, methods, for wording also and reports, and this is a super slow process because everybody kind of wants to make sure that they have their own share of the market, can keep that. So the situation that labs will contradict each other, that will remain here for some time being. I think that we cannot sort that out immediately. But it is really bad for the industry that we have these inconsistencies. So what we want to do is, and what we achieved with this software, which hopefully we're going to have others joining, that we can take the human factor out of it, because the human factor is a source of inconsistency, a massive one. And imagine you're spending, I don't know, 3-4 millions for a Kashmiri sapphire, and then you inherit it to the next generation. They come to the lab again, and then it turns out it's a Madagascar sapphire. I mean, this is a loss of an order of magnitude of value, right? Yeah, and you cannot accept that as an industry. So at least this part, what we can do internally, running 4 labs globally, we could increase our consistency massively. We are now at the stage where we want to open it to other labs. So that's already quite an achievement. There's also a nice economic side of it. We could reduce the range of analytical data that we are collecting on a stone. We can basically skip, not for all stones, but for many stones, we can skip the microscopic analysis. And for those people who are a bit familiar with what color gemstone labs are doing, that's a massive step. In the past, that was the one single kind of work that you did on a stone. You were studying the stone, studying the inclusion. Now, we still do it, but we get a proposition from the software already based on analytical data only, on running some spectra and chemical analysis, and that's it. And we only need to do a little bit of microscopy to confirm what we call the plausibility test, to check whether the result that the software is giving out is plausible. So that's already also having a consistency improvement and a massive economic benefit for us, which we are happy to forward to the client.
Yeah. Before I just bring in Lisa, I mean, in terms of color determination, do you foresee that the labs will be more efficient in identifying color going forward?
Once we have a hardware that can assess the color in as much detail and in such a comprehensive way as the human eye can, then I can promise you we're going to be the first one to do it. We are permanently testing new hardware to assess the color. It's not that simple. So far, none of the hardwares that we were cooperating with can do that. The human eye seems to be much more sensitive. Think of a paparacha sapphire. You know, the color is inhomogeneous. You have pleochroism in the material. So there's such a kind of a wealth of sensation that you have in your eyes, which so far no hardware can cope with.
Thank you. Lisa, you were waving your hand. What would you like to, point of view would you like to give?
I was, a couple of things. First of all, I'm sitting here with the recent issue of the January-February issue of Ethical Corporation. And one of the things that is pointed out really underscores concerns raised by Rebecca, which is that the human oversight of the machine, consistent care with regard to data, are absolutely critical, because you run a reputational risk if the validity of what's been put in and what is concluded is eroded. In other instances, there are articles in this issue of this magazine that stress the criticality of human oversight for other reasons. But it reminds us that technology is a tool, and ultimately we are using that technology, and we have a responsibility to the consumer ultimately as to how that technology is used, but also to ourselves, all of whom adhere to ESG and UN SDG principles, and thinking about the impact that we have on society and the society of our corporations, and serving both the customer and those in the corporation.
Lisa, do you have any thoughts on how, if you like, policing of implementation of AI technology in the gem and jewellery industry can be ameliorated? I mean, can Cibjo take any role in terms of just monitoring the evolution of AI in the industry? Can it make recommendations? I mean, what are your thoughts on oversight and how it can be implemented?
Well, I have several thoughts. First of all, in every instance, so if I'm a corporation, Rebecca is a corporation, David Block is a corporation, of course, we all, each of us in our own instances, need to be implementing that kind or having that kind of informed oversight. In terms of larger, if you will, industry oversight, I think that Daniel talked about a group that exists that deals with these issues. Yes, I think that Cibjo, for which I have enormous admiration, could perhaps participate in that group. At the same time, I believe Cibjo has its technology commission, and Stefan Fischler, who was on the previous panel, not today, but addressing this issue in Paris, he and I have been talking about the concerns that we both share for the criticality of careful use and the thought of and preparedness for ramifications of using this, not only in terms of consumer trust, which is critical. So if we can increase trust, that's wonderful. On the other hand, the areas where perhaps we need more human engagement, to be attentive to those, that is important. And so I think that what we need actually is almost a universal awareness that is then implemented collaboratively through organizations, certainly Cibjo itself and in concert with others. And then, you know, something that interests me greatly is that many of us have had a sort of hemispheric blindness, and somehow we need to think more globally with regard to this conversation as well.
Thank you very much. Rebecca, would you tell us just a little bit about how at Hearts on Fire you've been sort of monitoring AI? I know you've been sending out some of your staff to briefings, for example. What impact it's had within the business so far, and a few thoughts as to where you may be going with it?
Yeah. So we have the fortunate opportunity of being located in Boston. So we have access to MIT and Harvard, and I encourage our IT team to attend many conferences and webinars. And they come back very concerned because there are no guardrails, because there are no guidelines. It's like repeating, you know, the evils of social media to a certain extent without really having controls. And I'm not against AI. I think there's a lot of pros, you know, for aggregation, you know, matching diamonds, storytelling if the data, you know, becomes really intelligent. But I'm always really about the implementation and how we go about doing things. And there's a lot of disparate programs out there right now, you know, that may not really be the right type to use for this. And, you know, also if we look at grading labs, it's been a problem, right? Because we have different standards across the grading labs. And labs will grade a diamond very differently, the same diamond. And now we're going into this, and, you know, it concerns me, especially when we talk about, you know, giving companies like myself, Hearts on Fire, you know, software that I could do it on my own. So the intentions have to be the same. It's not about, you know, necessarily saving money because we're eliminating labor costs. It has to be about that consumer confidence and trust. And somehow we need to get together to make sure that there's common purpose and intention, that it is indeed going to provide an elevation of the diamond experience and not something else.
Thank
David,
you,
if I could just jump in and say one thing, I think Rebecca raised really well, and that is the issue of third-party certification. And what role does third-party certification play in bolstering consumer trust? And I realize it's a bit of a derive from the way we have been pursuing this conversation. But as Rebecca said, if she is given her own software and Hearts on Fire issues its own reports, is there, from the perspective of consumer trust, something that third-party certification offers, and all across the board in the jewelry industry, not simply in diamond grading, that will be perhaps lost, that is critical?
David?
Maybe I can relate to a few points that have been raised here. So first of all, I think industry oversight is a great idea. Why? Because at least I get the underlying feeling that there's, due to a lot of, because people don't know what it means, what AI is, how does it work, they're afraid of it. And I think oversight can alleviate a lot of that. So I think it's a great idea. Because in the end, whether it's GA or whether it's Sarine or whether it's another company, our main asset is the trust that we provide. So
how can the oversight be implemented? And by
it's a great idea. Again, I'd be happy to engage with conversations on that. I'm on the technical committee at Cibjo, and we can definitely take that up and think how to approach that. But I think it's a great idea because a lot of the fear is derived on the fact that people don't really understand what it means. So that's one thing. And I think if that process is started, that can help alleviate a lot, because there's a lot of good things that AI can do, and there's a lot of problems. I mean, take, for example, something out of the industry. The moment a Tesla auto-driving car has an accident, it's a big story. Technology is no good. But then when you go back and check the number of accidents that automatic driving cars have compared to people, it's way better. And that's the parameter that's important, not the accident that happens. So technology is not perfect. It's not a silver bullet. You need to understand where it can help you and where it's not going to be 100%. And you need to understand its advantages and disadvantages. And that's very important. As time goes by, it's going to get better and better. That's no doubt about it. But it's very important to understand what it can do and it can't do, and not expect it to be the perfect answer in the moment it is, and saying it's no good. So I think that's also a very important point that needs to be realized. And Daniel basically said that if he can determine the origin in a more consistent way, a better way, as compared to the previous processes of a person analyzing data, then that's a good thing. He's getting a better result, a more consistent result for his client, and therefore raising the bar of confidence rather than the other way.
Thank you. If I could ask Wuyi, in terms of the future evolution of the way in which gemological laboratories will work with AI, I mean, presently, labs tend to report on higher value stones generally because of the cost involved. I mean, do you foresee that the volumes of business and the volumes of stones that will be reported upon would increase going forward due to the infusion of AI technologies?
I'll say yes. AI would make something impossible to do by human being manually, make that possible to do by AI technology. Maybe to answer your question, I use two examples to show you what in GI we have been doing, try to use AI, and one example show AI can do better than human being. Another example I will show AI may not be able to do comparing with the human being in terms of performance. You know, there are a lot of fake inscriptions on diamonds, fake inscriptions on lab-grown diamonds, and with a perfect match of forces, they mimic GI inscription. So what we do is every diamond we grade in GI, we take a picture of inscription as reference in our database, and then we offer a small device and in the trade to take a picture of that diamond in question. So now we have two pictures of GI inscription. One could be true GI, another one could be fake. So you have, if for human being, if we put the two pictures, inscription pictures side by side, I think a human being can make it 100% accurate. They are same inscription or not, because we read all the features, the good of junctions and the good outlines to see with the numbers, the font size. I think we can make 100% accurate. GI offers this device, it's a service to check if the inscription is a true GI inscription. We have a device of apps, if you know that. We tried very hard to use AI technology, excellent, to use AI technology to say these two pictures are same or not. I think AI probably can reach 99% accurate. So so that's one example to show AI is great, it automated the service, but it is still not so good compared to human being. If I can quickly talk another example that AI could do better than human being is a lot of jewelry in the trade, and one piece of jewelry that's a pendant could have 200 tiny diamonds on it. And there are some lab-grown mixed together with the nature. For human being to test, to measure every single, even count the stones, is a 200, 201. It's almost impossible for me if I count 3 times, every time get a different result. AI would be able to do a much better job than human being, not only how many stones, tell you exactly the location, so we can analyze each individually to make sure it's a natural or lab-grown, and it can also give us a size, how big the diameter is. So I use this example, AI can do much better for this type of service than human being. That creates a new opportunity for GI to advocate and to advance our jewelry service.
So a question for the whole panel, and anybody can come in on this one. There seems to be a view that certain jobs clearly will go. Diamond grading jobs, a number of those jobs are likely to go as new technologies come in the next few years. But if we could just focus on what kind of new roles may emerge, I'd be interested in your point of view. Rebecca, you talked earlier about the idea of a chief AI officer. Perhaps you could elaborate a little bit on that. But do any of you foresee particular types of new roles emerging, perhaps they pertaining to customer service, where human beings are, in the process of gemstone reporting? What will change in terms of new roles?
Can I comment on that? In GI, we pay a lot of attention on AI, how it can improve our not only lab operation, but also the office operation. I sit here today on behalf of our CEO, Pritesh. He was not able to come. He is a big advocate for AI technology. So in GIA, we just set up a committee by Pritesh to guide our effort of AI application in GI to make sure it is properly applied, is an ethic. There are many things we need to consider. So yes, we try to address this from the top.
I think you'll see, and I think we alluded to that, the ability to test a lot more diamonds that today it's not commercially possible to do so. Cost is a factor, and once you combine automation, physical automation, along with the AI processes, you can actually start evaluating goods that are not evaluated today. So that's one area. Jewelry grading, I think in the end, basically, I think Vicenza is a perfect example. Most of the time, we sell jewelry to the consumer. We don't sell diamonds or gemstones. We sell a jewelry piece. So I think what you'll see and what you're already seeing today is a more and more of a shift of grading to jewelry as well. That's a fairly small segment today of what is done in DM labs, and there's less technology available. Wuyi gave a good example of what is available today, or what GA is doing, what we are doing. So there is areas that can be used, but jewelry grading is a big segment that is not necessarily being handled by labs today. And you probably see, at least from my perspective, people shifting from loose goods to more to jewelry. We have, for example, teams of gemologists or graders that work in the R&D side on evaluating and working together with our data scientists how to grade. So you've got gemologists or graders working more in the research side. Again, Daniel gave an example of that on the gemstone side as well. So you can see a lot of different opportunities, I think, of people from within the same realm of diamond grading or gemstone grading, moving from different positions. Operators, we've got in our lab. You walk into our labs, you see a huge amount of equipment and a lot of people sitting working on that equipment. Many of those people, for example, in our India lab, don't even know how to read and write, but they're working on a computer, they're working on high tech, they're elevating their skills. So I think, again, there's a lot of benefits, not only downsides, but a lot of benefits to utilization. Definitely it's going to change skill sets and jobs. But you know, there's always been that fear, whether it's the Industrial Revolution, computers and IT, that jobs are going to disappear. And I agree with Lisa, we shouldn't just assume that it's going to be okay. We need to work, and in general, there's a much wider social aspect to understand what's going to happen, because I think the AI revolution is going to be dramatically different. So there's definitely a huge social aspect that needs to be considered, but that shouldn't be, we shouldn't be led by that fear only. We should take it into consideration, understand what to do, but that shouldn't put us into a deadlock of saying, no, we shouldn't do that.
Just a quick question before I turn to Lisa. Question for the whole panel. Do you foresee that due to the implementation of AI technologies, in future there'll be more reporting and grading of laboratory-grown diamonds and synthetic diamonds, or not? Paul?
Not by us, in any case, because we stopped grading synthetic diamonds. So we won't be doing that. In my opinion, synthetic diamonds don't really require a cert because it has no value. A grading report should serve for showing the rarity of the product, and it's not a rare product. So from that perspective, I have to say, for us, it's not a focus at all. We are focusing on jewelry grading, absolutely. That's for us important. To go back to the prior question, I think that indeed operators will, to a certain extent, take place of a certain part of the human capital that's being employed by a grading company. But it will be, I think it will be more of a mixed group of human capital that you will have within your organization. And it will be, because I also need to cherish and nurture that human capital that's employed with us. So it will all be about training them and educating them and making sure that they are ready to actually evolve together with the world that surrounds us.
Thank you. Lisa?
Yeah, I just wanted to speak to a comment that David Block made, and that is about leading with fear, if you will, about the ramifications or the consequences of AI. And what I would say to us all is, in every aspect, we should lead with hope and with intent to build the world we hope to see. And a small example of an instance where there's a commitment to no redundancy is the Royal Mint. And they have, for example, highly skilled individuals whose focus for quite some time has been on coinage. Coinage is of less importance. Their skills are being redeployed. They are being engaged in pursuits that make use of their expertise, but in different ways. It has also opened up new business possibilities for the Mint, as Daniel suggests perhaps it might for Gübelin. But the other thing I wanted to point out is something that is very important and that has been mentioned several times, and that is collaboration amongst enterprises. So with Daniel and Gübelin, it's a question of perhaps leasing and lending expertise to those who want it. I know that Sarine and GIA, for example, have had tremendous collaboration. And collaboration is an element of thinking proactively. And in, for example, the arts and crafts movement, people speak, oh, it's antediluvian. Not true. They were Arcadian. They were, no, forgive me, utopian. And that is thinking ahead. So what do we hope to see? Let us lead with hope, and certainly with Cibjo by our side.
Lisa, maybe just to, I don't know if you maybe misunderstood, I said we shouldn't lead by fear. I said sometimes we are led by fear, by our fear.
No, I wasn't suggesting you thought we should lead by fear. What I was trying to say is that that is a locution or a mindset that people often have, which is the fear is the thing that takes over. And I would never suggest that of Sarine because, as you know, I think the world of Sarine and of you. But what I was saying is that that is a framework, if you will, that often happens where we lead in planning based on, if you will, what Thomas Jefferson said, grief. He defined it as fear of what could happen and how we live 9 times out of 10 the disastrous situation, and that doesn't come to pass. And so I was putting myself in more of a UN SDG framework, which is to lead with hope for what we wish to build. In no way was I suggesting that Sarine is not part of that, because you had me at hello.
Rebecca.
Yeah, I mean, I think, look, AI is here, and I think it has a lot of pros, and I'm totally for it. Again, it's just how we accomplish it together as an industry with responsibility and good results. If you look at the graphic design industry as an example, there are, still graphic designers working in design companies using AI. Why? Because to make sure that the end product looks different or has a certain human element to it, they often put the last touch on a piece of art or a piece of packaging or whatever, something that AI can't do. It needs a shadow, or it needs to be angled. So I think there's an opportunity for what we might call AI graders, which means that they're, responsible for making sure, data in, data out. The data has to be good. It has to constantly develop. It has to make the tool more intelligent. And then also, be there to perhaps put that last human check or element touch to the end product, whatever that is.
Thank you. Lisa?
Well, Rebecca also points to something else, which is that we have a spectrum of realms in which AI can be employed. And one of them, of course, is more, if you will, efficient production. But on the other hand, you have this quest for personalization, for individuation, and the need for something that is, if you will, infused with some sort of human essence. And this is another place where humans or people enter, if you will, and can work collaboratively, and also, as Rebecca has said, be actually the end review and the hand that affirms and finishes. And that is something that is, in a sense, irreplaceable, because human creativity and artistry is actually something that, along with technological sophistication and responsibility to the planet, are kind of the essentials for jewelry to go forward.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to ask one more question, and then we'll give the audience an opportunity to ask questions. So if our technical support could maybe have a microphone to hand, just in case we have questions from the audience. Question for the whole panel. In view of the infusion of AI-driven technologies across the spectra of gem labs, are we likely to see more consolidation in the industry? Are we going to see gem labs buying other gem labs, fewer players down the line, or not?
I would assume every technology that is changing industries such as ours fundamentally will also lead to kind of a shakeout, right? We're going to see consolidations, we're going to see mergers, we're going to see maybe the number of gem labs reducing, which I think is a good thing. And at the same time, there's going to be new things popping up, other services, other things that we might not even know what it is today. And I think this is absolutely a wonderful thing to have. So we should not be afraid of that development at all.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions? Anybody? Yes, Iris van der Weken. Let's see, how are we going to get a microphone? Oh, there is a microphone. Excellent, very good. Heading your way. Iris van der Weken, Executive Director of Watch and Jewellery Initiative 2030.
It works? Okay. Thank you. It works. Thank you very much. So first of all, thank you very much for putting this important topic on the agenda. I have a question for the audience. I'm fully aligned that I think it could be a real big opportunity for the industry to even more traceability and transparency, and to even get more data points into what we know of the product. And if we think about stepping ahead on compliance and legislative requirements, we need to know much more on the origin of source. We will need to know much more on positive and negative impact, biodiversity, nature, etc. This is going to be all science. I mean, actually, sustainability is going to be all about science and engineering. What do you think the role is of AI on that topic, aligned with what you're doing today?
Maybe I'll relate to the grading side. I think one of the big advantages of grading using technology is you have data points. Whereas compared to a manual grading process where a gemologist or grader or two graders or sometimes three graders pick up a diamond and say, this is D, this is E, there's no data points. There's no trail, there's no audit trail. I mean, there's an audit trail of what the grader said, but why did he decide that it's D or E? It's because that's what he decided. Whereas with technology, you have a data trail. You have a full audit trail of why that diamond was graded as it was. And if someone thinks it's incorrect, you can go back to the data. So there's a huge advantage, whether it's grading, whether it's traceability. In fact, many different areas within our industry that those data points provide a lot of that need that you're talking about, whether it's regarding compliance, whether it's regarding process. Data is in the end what can provide that.
Daniel, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I have something to add. Thank you for bringing that up. It is a very important point. This is about gem labs, right? I mean, in particular for the colored gemstone labs, the fact that we exist is a shame for the industry because there's such a lot of crap going around, coming with the stone, right? There's no transparency. Many of the players, and including ourselves as a Colorstone Gem Lab, our business model is the intransparency of the trade. That's why we exist. So that's why we have started other initiatives. That's why we're embracing AI, because it gives us data. The technology is helping us to get rid of this ridiculous business model that we're also living from the last 100 years. So that's why I fully embrace these technologies. I agree with the statements from the audience that we have to be cautious, but keep in mind, every new technology, I believe, the risks and the opportunities, they get overrated in the short term, and they get underrated in the long term. So we're going to see those technologies being embedded and become commonplace and daily in our lives, which is a good thing.
I think it also, because of the data points, can actually really enhance storytelling. To your point about origin, maybe unique characteristics of a diamond, you know, like an inclusion that becomes something really unique that's only seen in X amount of diamonds. So we start to talk a little bit more about diamonds from an artistic standpoint. So again, there's definitely positive things that I totally embrace. And I think, to your point, it will help with traceability and origin as well.
I think that actually the mission of probably all of us should be to protect the customers. And that also involves sustainability, and the customer might want to know what is the origin of the diamonds, in what sustainable way has it been polished or mined or whatever it may be. So I think there is good synergies possible between your question and what grading laboratories do. Because already I think GIA is offering that you can print certain origin on the grading report. I think there's a tracer possibility. We're also in talks with the blockchain companies to have those information printed on the grading reports. So I think the more data which is available to present to the customer is helping all of us.
Thank you very much. We're out of time. I'd just like to say thank you to Gaetano Cavalieri and Steve Benson for putting together this theme and for being right on top of AI, hugely important in our industry. Thank you, panelists. Thank you for the question. Thank you, everybody.